Now this post may be a little bit more philosophical than some other posts, but don't take me too seriously or believe everything that I say. I'm not here so much to deliver any kind of information or facts, maybe more food for thought. I like photographing black and white much more than color. I feel I can express myself better with black and white. And color to me is a little bit like English language. Yeah, I can make myself understood, but nobody really enjoys it. So why is it that I like black and white more? Well, I have a theory. I believe that we look at color pictures fundamentally differently than black and white pictures. I mean, this is obviously an artifact. It's a man-made object. It's a black and white picture. It's not a real thing. It's not a real scenery. This is not a real person. These are photographs, and we realize it immediately, even unconsciously, and without thinking about it. And I believe that we experience color pictures in a very different way. They go immediately to our reptile brains, and they immediately reflect reality. So instead of seeing an artifact, we see a scenery. Instead of seeing a photograph, we see a person. So when a black and white picture, we see a portrait. In a color picture, we see a person. And that gives black and white pictures so much more latitude. It's not from the world of reality, and it doesn't need to reflect reality. It doesn't need to obey the laws of physics, but it can create its own laws. And where God decided how the world would look like, I can choose the way my own creations, an artificial black and white picture, looks like. This is an artificial picture, not a lake view. This is an artificial picture, not my dad. And as my theory goes, this actually happens unconsciously, even before we realize what we are looking at. Also with color pictures, if you deviate too far away from the natural colors, your picture starts to look weird. Or if you add too much grain or vignetting or shadows, your color pictures start to look unrealistic. And the viewer starts to ask, like, did it really look like this, or did you spend too much time with Photoshop? So with black and white pictures, you get much more freedom. I mean, black and white picture is not realistic from the get-go. It's a black and white interpretation of the reality, and the viewer judges your picture based on if it looks interesting, how does it make them feel, does it create an emotion? But it is an artificial creation in a means of paper, silver and chemical, and nobody really expects it to be real. And I believe this happens automatically in our brains. We look at the black and white picture in a fundamentally different ways than color pictures. Now, I of course can't prove any of this. This is nothing more than a silly theory that I came up with, and some real brain expert should look into how pictures land on our brains. But meanwhile, let me show you what I mean with pictures. Color filters can change the look of your black and white images significantly. Let's take an example. Red filter. If you photograph through a red filter, it doesn't make your black and white pictures red. Of course not. But it makes red look brighter, more light, more white. And it makes the opposite colors, like blue and green, look more black. So with the color filter, instead of altering the color of your picture, you alter the blackness and lightness of your picture. So think about this. This is actually pretty cool. So in most cases we can add a light to a certain part of our picture by, using a means to add light. And we can make things darker by preventing light to enter to that part of your picture. But with color filters, we can add light simply by selecting the right color and remove light selecting another color. Now this is something you can't do with the color pictures. I mean, of course you could photograph it through a red filter, but then you would just be adding weird red to your pictures, not adding light. See? The same effect is handled differently by your brains and eyes with the color picture than with the black and white picture. Think about this, pretty cool, and shows how fundamentally differently the light and the color is managed in color pictures and in black and white photography. So here are a few pictures that I photographed last week through this red filter using my roller cord. These pictures are taken in the middle of the day. So the red things like the brick walls, your skin, the rays of sun that have a lot of red elements, they become brighter. And then the blue and green stuff like the sky, eyes and the forest, they simply become more black. Now this all creates a very unique look into these pictures, and it's only possible with black and white. It doesn't look realistic, but it certainly looks interesting. And now, had I added red filter to a color picture, your brain would say, that looks strange. But now that I added it to a black and white picture, your brain says, wow, that's interesting. So my theory goes that when we look at a color picture, it is more a biological reaction. And we don't necessarily make a difference between the reality and the picture. Whereas when we look at a black and white picture, there's much bigger distance between the reality and the artifact that we are looking at. Maybe that's why I like black and white photography. It gives me the tools to create my own reality and create my own art. I don't need to follow the rules of the real reality. And when you look at my pictures, you take them as my pictures, not as a documentation of reality. I'm not sure if I managed to explain myself at all. But I simply like black and white photography.